Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Instagram, and MeWe. And of course, be sure to visit mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
We're the only guests still here.
How long are we going to stay here?
I don't know. There's no flights anyway. They're telling everyone to stay put.
Blackouts happen every night at 10.
To the strangest honeymoon ever.
To the best honeymoon ever.
Yes.
I thought we were the only people here.
We are.
She was staring at the phone. And then the phone rang. And she answered it.
Housekeeping.
Doesn't sound that weird to me.
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 369. Out now on digital is Shelter in Place, a psychological horror thriller that stars Brendan Hydes and Tatiana Marjanovic as a newly married couple quarantined in the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. As cabin fever sets in and tensions rise, soon this couple are faced with a very real danger within the walls that are supposed to keep them safe. A well-crafted and performed horror thriller, Shelter in Place also marks the feature film directorial debuts of Chris Beyrooty and Connor Martin, who I'm glad to say join me now on the podcast. I thank you both very much for joining me today, Christopher and Connor.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
So, Christopher, from what I can gather, Shelter in Place came together pretty fast. I'm curious, when did you and Connor really come up with the idea for this film? Was the concept for it kicking around for a while? Was this something of a more recent idea?
So this was something that I was approached by our fearless producer, Jonathan Comack Martin, in weeks preceding the actual production of the film, with a wild idea that, hey, we have full access to this storied Hollywood hotel. What would it look like for you and Connor to put your heads together and come up with a concept that we could shoot on the fly 14 days from now before the restrictions are lifted. So from the day that we got that phone call until the day we were shooting was 13 days. So the conception came on the first day when we were kicking around some ideas based on, there was a couple in the Maldives who had a similar experience. And you have to remember that this was happening as the COVID lockdowns were more or less unfolding. So everything you see in the film was shot in real time. So as the characters were experiencing these things, so were Connor and I, as well as the crew and the rest of the cast as well.
And the rest of the world.
And the rest of the world. So it was a creative challenge. One of our favorite fun facts about the film is that it's generally, for the most part, is dramatic improvisation. We ended up shooting off a 15-page outline. And every morning would come into set knowing more or less the structure of the storyline that we'd like to shoot, but then injecting and with a creative collaboration between Connor, me, and the actors, coming up with dialogue that would fit the mold to progress us through to the following scene. So it was a creative exercise, to say the least, and it did really come together quick. So we're happy with what we were able to pull together.
Connor, when it comes to the hotel, so the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, what do you and Chris know of the place? Have you been there before? Do you have for example, I don't know, opportunity to go in there and look around and get some type of inspiration for the look of it, for the feel of it? And does that fuel the script that you have initially? And do things change when you actually get in there and start filming? Does the vibe of the place kind of change how you approach the screenplay and the characters?
Yeah, I mean, the hotel itself is sort of this historic monument in LA. Like, it's so famous. It's been in quite a few movies before. Quite a few famous names have been in and out of its doors throughout history. And I'm actually based in New York, so my first time in the hotel itself was, I think, 3 days before the first day of shooting.
Yeah.
But Chris had been in from time to time before that, and it was just so interesting to kind of get to be completely alone in such a famous monument. And the hotel really did grow to almost be a character in and of itself.
Yeah. And I can really say that the walls of the hotel like speak so many stories of Hollywood's past. And it's such a monument in the Hollywood skyline that the fact that we had the opportunity to shoot there was, unparalleled, and what an incredible experience.
Connor, when you say completely alone, how many, was there anyone in there at all up beside yourself and Chris and your crew and actors? Was there anyone else staying in there? Are you in a section off part of the hotel, or do you have this whole thing as your own personal playground?
I think, save for our small crew, about 6 or 7 people, we were, for the most part, completely alone. There were a few members of the hotel staff on security at the time, and in a few sections of the hotel, they were remodeling a few sections, particularly in the old entryway, which was kind of covered in all these creepy tarps, which you see in the film at some point. And then also they were redoing the pool at the time. We had to beg them to not drain the pool until we could shoot out there.
Chris, this place, the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, is very iconic. It's very notorious. One of the things it's notorious for is alleged hauntings that are happening there. So when you are all in this, hotel, do you come across any experiences in regards to supernatural? Were there, mysterious phone calls supposedly to the hotel operator office without everyone around? Do you have any type of experiences like that?
So it was crazy. I mean, we had heard rumors of multiple hauntings, did our own research into it. And that to us was part of the allure. I mean, Con and I are such aficionados of horror films that getting to experience firsthand this storied hotel with all of the now deceased celebrities that allegedly haunt the halls, we had our suspicions. And to a small degree, we had some of those suspicions confirmed when we got a call from one of the hotel staff. Actually, he rushed into the room besides himself saying, come look at this security footage that we just captured. And whether it was just happenstance, I don't know, but we went down and looked in one of the storage rooms, the coat room in the front of the hotel. We were watching security footage, and one of the automatic doors slid open on its own. And then in the storage room in the back, there was one of those water coolers, the big blue jugs over the base. And all of a sudden, he's like, look at this. And we look up, and the thing's essentially projectiled across the room.
Wow.
Water spilling everywhere. And, he had no idea what natural cause of that could have been. So some experiences like that, our lead actor, Brendan Hines, said he experienced a run-in with Johnny Grant up in the Johnny Grant suite, who was deemed the mayor of LA back in the prime of Hollywood.
The radio days.
Yeah. So, there was no shortage of actual, apparitions that we would argue also helped creatively inspire the film through their whisperings.
When someone's telling a story about weird supernatural happenings that, you're kind of sitting there listening to the story and being like, okay, this is, whatever, this is not true. But crazy, because that is actually true. The story, the cooler was just so frightening.
But from our experience, they were all friendly ghosts, and we would highly recommend you spending your vacation out at the Hollywood Roosevelt. And see for yourself.
I want to talk about the casting because essentially what you have is four main cast, but the two main characters, John and Sarah Burke, are played by Brendan Hines and Tatiana Marjanovic. Tatiana is a fellow Aussie, has appeared in a lot of films here and is starting to make a career for herself over in America as well. How do you both come across Brendan and Tatiana? Have you worked with them before? Have you seen their work before? Because I'd imagine that to have this type of project, especially in regards to the improvisational nature and the resources that you have, it being an independent production, you want to have a cast with you that you can trust and you can know will really hit it out the ballpark, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I've worked with Tatiana in the past, and she is one of the most incredible actresses I've had the experience of working with. She just has such a dynamic range, and the fact that we in our early discussions we were like, Tatiana, you're an Aussie, you can feel free to use your natural accent. We're going to be improvising, and she told us, no, I feel confident that I could take this to the expert level and not only improvise but improvise the entire thing in an American accent, unnoticed to the naked eye. So I think that just speaks testament to her skill. And then Jonathan, our producer, had worked with Brendan before and just had a lovely experience with him on a few indie features. And so when we reached out to them, we kind of given the premise of what we were trying to do. They both said, this sounds like an incredible acting exercise, unlike anything we've done before. We'd love the opportunity to creatively collaborate and build this story with you. And that is exactly the case of what happened. So I really can't wait. Tatiana was in a short of mine, a horror short a few years ago. And I just can't wait to work with both of them again in the near future.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by 80s Tees. 80s Tees is an online retailer of licensed t-shirts and pop culture gear from your favorite movies, TV shows, cartoons, video games, comic books, and musicians. Celebrate your inner 80s nerd and click on the link in the show notes below to get the raddest retro t-shirts delivered to your door. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Loot Crate. Founded in 2012, Loot Crate is the worldwide leader in fan subscription boxes. Loot Crate partners with industry leaders in entertainment, gaming, sports, and pop culture to deliver monthly themed crates, produce interactive experiences in digital content, and film original video productions. No matter what you geek out about, Loot Crate has a subscription box for you. To get your very own exclusive collectibles, apparel, and gear delivered to your door, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is also brought to you by Vudu. Watch the latest movies and TV shows anytime, anywhere. No subscriptions, no contract. Enjoy stunning quality in up to 4K ultra high definition at home and download and watch on your mobile device as well. To rent and buy from over 100,000 titles or watch thousands of movies free with Vudu Movies on us, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. Now, back to the show. And kind of, when people talk like COVID movie, there's a certain aesthetic that people are kind of used to right now, particularly, characters on screen talking through Zoom or Skype or something like that. And I just want to say to both yourself and Chris, just thank you very much for creating a film that's based on these issues that doesn't feature that element, because I'm kind of getting sick myself of watching people talking on screens in the movie. I love the craft in this film. How important was it that this movie avoid that kind of thing, where people are talking on screens, etc., even though there's a little bit of that in regards to Sarah's character because she is an influencer, but not to what I'm talking of. How important was it that there is craft in the film and that you avoid what people stereotypically see as what a quote-unquote COVID movie is these days?
Yeah, that was definitely in the early talks of the film. We knew that what we didn't want. We definitely did not want to do a film over Zoom, even though that's a very creative way to make a film, and there's been some exciting movies in that format. The Host is one of them, but yeah, we approached it knowing that we wanted to make a true film, take our time, with a crew setups, and yeah, I mean, it was just a blast to do it in that way. And it grew into something that we're all really proud of.
And it's something you should really be proud of because, like I said, the craft of the film is just exceptional. And something that I really love about it is the use of color in the film. Chris, how much does a giallo style of filmmaking influence this movie? Because I definitely feel a little bit of that influence, especially in regards to color schemes in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Connor and I sat down early on in the process and discussed how color was something we wanted to be really symbolic throughout the film. And typically when you think of, let's say, for example, there were certain scenes where we wanted things brightly lit in white. And instead of that being like the angelic, heavenly tone that would typically give off of like purity, we instead wanted to be like bleakness and desperation. And Connor, if you want to continue to touch on that as well.
Yeah, I guess to answer the question, Jello plays a huge influence on both of us. You know, we're huge Argento fans. Fulci's another name. Like I think a few months before we were cranking through The Beyond, a couple of other Fulci movies, New York Ripper, and yeah, I mean that plays a huge part. And their method of shooting, I know Argento did this too. It's just like it's very style over substance, and they work quickly and just do as much as they can with as little as possible. And that was a big influence on us. And then also just the fact that, you know, Jello is a genre. It's the thing that's so appealing to it, appealing about it is that you genuinely do not know where the movies are going. And a lot of times that's to a fault. Like a lot of people's complaints about the genre is like, you know, it's so meandering. These twists don't make any sense. Like everything is forced, but you have to buy into that. That's the fun of it. Yeah. And it's so fun to watch a movie to me that, you know, it might be lacking in some areas, but then they just have these like crazy moments where, I mean, the first time I watched Deep Red, like that was just such an insane movie. And I wanted to, you know, we wanted to really capture the feeling that you feel watching those movies.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a love letter to all those films as well. And I think that nowadays everything's so plot oriented that this opportunity allowed us a space to experiment outside the confines of like commerciality or needing to abide by like studio restrictions. This was kind of our sandbox, and we wanted to pay tribute to all those films that we grew up loving. So I think that hopefully that comes across as our inspiration in this.
Another great thing, Chris, that this movie does is that, you know, horror movies have a proud tradition of really kind of taking what's reality and kind of morphing it in some kind of twist away on the screen. And of course, this film deals with the whole kind of what's happening now with the whole COVID situation. And there's a couple of really cool lines from the movie. One is time doesn't seem to matter anymore. And another is what's out there is scarier than what's in here. And as someone in Sydney, Australia, who's currently in our 12th or 13th week of lockdown, quite strict lockdown conditions as well, put on top of that. It's those two quotes are really something that kind of struck me as well. You know, the characters, your world, it really, really does create the tension and really does create that feeling that we're kind of like living in an alternate reality. We're living kind of like in a bubble world. How important was it to really get that tone right, get that kind of structure right, and also really kind of talk about mental health in regards to what people are going through in lockdown, and also the nature this can have on relationships as well, because above everything else, this is very much a domestic drama, this movie.
Absolutely. I mean, I think those were our preliminary conversations right there when we were talking about what is this movie really about at its core. And I think Connor will mention as well as me that Possession is one of our references as the greatest breakup film of all time. But going into the construction of this film, I think we were all experiencing this. This was in the budding weeks of the pandemic, when for us, things had just officially locked down. And there were a lot of unknowns. Like we there hadn't been any real deep research on the virus yet. We didn't know what it could morph into, and there wasn't any certainty. So for us, it was this idea of let's take the things that are certain, our interior environment, and let's leave the fear of the unknown out in the open, where the characters felt safer staying in an environment that they typically wouldn't be comfortable staying in, as opposed to venturing out into who knows what lies beyond the walls. And I think we definitely exaggerated it to a slight degree by adding in things like rolling blackouts, which for a brief period of time was a thing in California.
Yeah.
And other small elements just to heighten the stakes and heighten the suspense.
Set in an alternate timeline, the worst possible outcome of virus.
Yeah. But, at its core, we wanted to keep it as true as possible with what we were experiencing at the time.
There's another great movie, Messiah of Evil, that was a pretty big inspiration of ours. And I think that movie really captures this sort of strange post-hippie environment where there's just this kind of, it's a very lonely film, and you're kind of just watching these characters drift through this town, which seems to not exist in any plane of reality that has like real time and events that pass by, and they captured just this feeling so well. It's kind of this inexplicable feeling that, we wanted to do our best to try to capture as well.
Well, you guys done a really great job with this movie. For everyone out there listening, Shelter in Place, currently available in digital, both in the US, in Australia as well. And I really recommend people check this film out. It's such a beautifully crafted and performed movie. And it really is a movie that really taps into the themes of what's going on today and does it in a really, really interesting and unique way. And Christopher and Connor, I thank you both very much for your time today. And look, congratulations with this film. You guys did great job there. And I can't wait to see what you guys have in the future.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate the time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content. Also, if you would like to request a review and support my work, please join my Patreon via the link in the description below.